Welcome back to NHS Hack Day in Cardiff, Sunday morning, getting busier, coming up towards the presentations, but before that I'm here having a chat with Collis from Barrett, your community interest company, who we're working in partnership with for this event to be able to make it more inclusive. Can you tell us about what you've been doing?
Well, the most important thing is any kind of actual event, if you build things in right at the start, it becomes welcoming and inclusive for all kinds of people. And for something like this, NHS Hack Day, that's really important to us because so often we find that when digital design's being thought about, it's designed for a certain group of people and then anything else is a bit of an afterthought, and it's how do we adapt it, how do we change it. Whereas if you become inclusive by default and build it in at the start, it's going to work better for everybody. And nobody's really going to notice that it's designed to be inclusive. It just kind of happens naturally. So that's why we really wanted to get involved with the Hack Day, and we're really grateful to you for inviting us, and we're so grateful for the grant funding that allowed it
to be able to happen. And we've used that to be able to work with Carmarthen People First, which is
yes. What we did at the start was we looked around to think who would have a real input and who being here would make a big difference to some of the projects. And also who's got a bright idea but no idea about how to turn it into reality. And so we'd had initial discussions with a lot of different individuals and organisations, and in the end Carmarthenshire People First had a fantastic, very simple and this is where the Hack Day thing comes in. I was going to say they had a really simple, fantastic solution, but actually what they had was a pretty basic and life-changing problem, and it was obvious that there was going to be a fairly simple digital hack that could solve the problem. So we talked things through with them. We also talked things through, we brought a young woman, a teenager with us, and a Sri Lankan woman who'd not been to anything like this before. So the prep work that we'd done was just helping them to think whether they wanted to pitch an idea or whether they'd like to float around and just get involved. And the way that we put it was be a bit of a reality check, because sometimes when you've got very similar people who are used to working in tech together, they kind of miss things that might be really obvious to somebody outside. So with one of the groups, I've just floated around this weekend quite largely. And so one of the groups, it was saying, yeah, if you actually tweaked that and instead of thinking it's just visual, you could actually come up with something that was auditory and tactile that mirrored the visual. And then actually, if you don't really need words, so if you drop the words, then you've immediately got rid of any access issues around needing translation or literacy. If you're covering 3 senses, most people have at least one of those senses. And so if they're all built in from the start, it's not difficult to do. So we've been dropping those kinds of ideas really into groups, suggesting if you tweaked the font, it'll work better. If whenever you've got writing, you've also got some kind of voiceover that gives the same information, or if you've got spoken information that it's also visual. If you just build it in, it doesn't take much more work at this point, but it's life-changing for people being able to access it. So that's what I've been doing, is just wandering around and going, have you thought? And
so in a way, a hackathon is about the most kind of techie, geeky kind of event you get. People come in, and although we're sort of saying like we start with the problems, they use language that people aren't familiar with, and that it applies to even health professionals to come along. Sometimes don't understand sort of things, and there's always this tension for us between trying to how do we make it that people use jargon as a quick way of other people understanding, and that you'll say things. So in a way for us, it's really interesting to think about if we're making, as well as like for designing products, if we can design this event to be able to be accessible for people with learning disabilities, we've designed it to be accessible to everybody, to a much wider audience.
Yes.
And that therefore we can manage to get really the most out of it.
Yeah. I think it's worth saying that we were dead scared before we came, because we're not techie and we'd never been to anything quite like this. I mean, we've done Gov Camps, which is the whole, you don't know what's going to happen until you turn up and then it happens on the day. But that's really quite different from a hackathon approach. So we were scared coming in.
Yes.
When we talked with people who'd come with us after the pitching, 2 people, it was, well, we actually only understood what one of them was about. That's not necessarily a huge problem because everybody here has what we'd call an accessible attitude. So it's like we could then go to somebody and say, what on earth was that? And nobody laughed at us. People would then try different ways to re-explain it. And we'd kind of keep going until we'd worked out a way to communicate. And certainly one of the women who's with us went into one of the groups, and she'd got the confidence to be able to say, what's that? And people explained, and then the next bit, no, I don't understand, what was that word, or what's that phrase that you used? And they'd explain it. And after a couple of times, they were just catching themselves and spotting when they'd used something and just re-explaining it without her even needing to ask. And that kind of attitude where it's no big deal and you don't get made to feel stupid, that's what really matters at events like this. So it's less an issue of trying to stop people using jargon, because it is shorthand and it has its place. But it's then making sure that when you're working in mixed groups, that you're really comfortable with then explaining and finding a common language that you can use. And so I think the teams that have got somebody with them who's what we might call not the usual suspects for these events are ending up with stronger products because they're not doing something and then testing it on somebody. They're developing it from the start with people. So I'm hopeful that there'll be some really strong products out of this.
Yeah, I'm hopeful too. So it's been a great learning experience for all of us, and we're going to try and really do a good kind of catch up afterwards and try and share some of the lessons for us and think about what we can really still do more.
And I think that's the really important bit, because we could have done a workshop beforehand and we talked about it and we'd wanted to do it, and then circumstances just didn't allow it to happen. But what's happened instead is we've come as a team of fairly confident people. So we knew that nobody would get really upset if things didn't work out, or if it was difficult, or if we were just incredibly uncomfortable. You know, we could cope with it. And because we came without any real preparation, it's given us a much better feel for what it is like.
What it is like.
And so we're going to be able to do the debriefing afterwards as a team and really think through, okay, so next year, how can things be prepared? How could we talk to wider groups of people? And we'll be doing it from the position of actually having experienced what it's like to be chucked in the deep end.
Yes.
So I don't think it's a bad thing that we ended up not being able to do the workshop beforehand. We'll have the workshop after instead.
We will. Thank you so much for coming along and being involved.
We've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay, looks forward to seeing it all later on.
Great. Yes. Looking forward to presentations.
Thanks.
Thank you.